Mario Kart 64 is okay. I don't think it deserves the hate it gets. Not saying it's a great game, but it can still be decently fun. If you go into it expecting a wacky, chaotic jankfest, then you'll have a good time. It's a lot better than Super Mario Kart. The main issues are the controls, specifically drifting. Anyway, I'll be ranking the tracks today. As always, this is relative to the game. Let's begin. This should be pretty obvious. You know why. It's the most boring track ever made. It has nothing. And it's the longest track in the franchise. I've heard some people say it's a gauntlet. Now, I don't blame these elderly gentlemen for having memory problems. But as a reminder, the definition of a gauntlet is an intimidating or dangerous crowd or experience in order to reach a goal. I don't think not wanting to be bored out of your mind is what they meant by intimidating. It's not dangerous either. There's one chain chomp that appears once or twice a lap. I guess that's somewhat interesting. Like jumping out at the start. Such a small portion of the race is taken up by that it doesn't really matter. Not to mention that it's piss easy, and you can't fall off unless you're actively trying to. Some people might put this higher, saying, man, it's boring, but it's pretty. It is the most miserable track in the franchise. I think that outweighs it being pretty. Not denying that it's pretty though. The start looks nice, but you can't see it when you're going around it. The fireworks and translucent road are also nice touches. It's not the worst in the franchise, but it's the one I'd want to play the least. I'm generally confused by the boring is better than bad people. Would you rather have a bad thing happen to you or be bored? It's not like movies or bad things can be fun. Bad stuff is happening to you in video games. So it's somewhat similar to real life. And I don't think anyone would choose getting fired or expelled over just being bored. But this is the only case where I kind of agree with that philosophy. I just can't believe this was approved. It's the most basic desert imaginable, but it has a train. That's kind of memorable. Oh wait, it just forces you to stop in a racing game, and it shows up extremely frequently. You just stop for 5 seconds 8 times a race, and it's just a basic desert. And no, the orange sand doesn't make it better. Bone Dry Dunes has that too, and you probably rank that low. At least it has some advertisements. This one just says shot. I don't know what it means, but it's kind of cool. I first thought was that someone got shot, but I don't know why they'd have a billboard about that. They're the same billboards as the rest of the game. It has cacti. Guys, I'm really trying with the theme here. The only cool part of this track is that you can actually go onto the train tracks. You need to go on a slower path, but it's still kind of cool. And if you go that path, the lap doesn't count. Unfortunately, it doesn't really change anything. It has a good amount of shortcuts, but with everything going against it, that doesn't really matter. I'm sorry, I'm still baffled that they made an obstacle that just forces you to stop. And they appear so often. I understand it is meant to keep players together, which is a good gimmick and fitting for a Mushroom Cup track. But did they even test it? Ignoring that the person first can pass by and gain a huge breakaway, it's just not fun at all. Squeezing by it is very rare too. Passing by normally is pretty common, but barely squeezing by in a way that's thrilling, it never happens. And besides that, it's just agonizingly boring. Sorry train autists, this track sucks. Hey, at least it's not last since it isn't a generation long. It's just very boring and not visually interesting. Most of it is just a basic boardwalk. And I wish the fish was an actual hazard, but he's still cool. Does he have a name? I guess a dark boardwalk with a pitch black background makes for a pretty okay atmosphere. But it is a little ruined by how goofy the Boo models are. Just look at them. I appreciate the idea though, but it's so boring. The best part, and the part I hope they focus on for a remake, is the haunted house. Since it's actually interesting. They could do so much with the Haunted Slaughterhouse theme, and it's a crime that was remade in DS and not 8. The bats are pretty spooky. It is kinda jank though, but I 100% forgive that because it's visually different from the rest of the track. But besides that, it's very boring. To swat down any defenders, let's go over the parts that have literally anything going on. There's this one part where the bridge is broken and you fall down. That lasts like half a second. And the haunted house part, which lasts 7 seconds. The fish that shows up for a second, that's 8.5 seconds total. That means over the course of the entire race, 25.5 seconds out of 2 minutes have literally anything going on. Besides that, it's very boring even if it has an okay atmosphere. A later track manages to have an even better atmosphere and isn't boring. Oh, and it's earlier cup-wise than this. If I had to give it another compliment, I like how you can't see the water unless you fall all the way down. The DS version kinda messes that up. In summary, it's not as painful or as boring as the tracks below, but it's still kinda shit. This is higher than most people would have it. I get people putting this lower, but not last. Yes, it's very long, but it's not Rainbow Road level. I start getting bored mid-lap 2 and I'm fully bored mid-lap 3. While with Rainbow Road, I'm fully bored mid-lap 1. Its layout is still curvy. Like, there's some stuff going on. While Rainbow Road is just straight with some very mild turns. It's very obvious what's better. And Wario Stadium is way shorter too. How lazy it is kind of fits. The lore is Wario just bought a dirt pit and filled it with sand. This probably did poorly because it's shit. So then for his next stadium he actually tried. That's my headcanon since it seems like something Wario would do. And the Jumbotron doesn't even work. I think it's funny that the 64 website and manual say that's very long, so staying concentrated is the real challenge. That's one way to put it. Also, I thought this was the only track to have these types of arrows, but they're everywhere, so I guess I'll go die or something. Kinda interesting. Like, it doesn't have much going on visually. I like the Wario sign, but it doesn't really have many other things besides the aforementioned broken Jumbotron. And it's still a stadium. There are some jumps which are decently fun even without tricks. If you fall off here, you need to repeat a lap. That's so rare that it doesn't really matter at all. Honestly, if you fall down here, that's just a skill issue. The controls aren't hard to learn, so it's not like Lakeside Park's turn. You're just driving straight. It's still very boring and very long, so it couldn't really place much higher. It's just a basic ice track. The snowmen spice things up. I like that they're in the inner path, so you need to have good maneuverability to take the fastest path. However, I hate that the snowmen appear out of nowhere at this part. I usually take the outer path for that reason alone. But hey, I like the obstacle in theory. They're super punishing as well, so you need to be able to control your cart very well to risk that path. And that's the only good part. Even if the slippery controls make them harder to dodge than they'd usually be. But it's fine. The arrow texture makes its return. The rest is a boring ice track. Even the skybox is just a solid color. I guess there's a big Mario and Yoshi snow sculpture, but in the grand scheme of things that doesn't really help the aesthetics. It's not even super pretty. I can sometimes understand people thinking ice tracks are pretty, but not this. But the worst thing is this. If you take a shortcut barely too tight, you lose 30 seconds. That is ridiculous. Especially for an era where shortcuts were thriving. It has some highlights, but it's pretty uninspired and Lakitu can fuck off. I like the cows, but they're completely 2D and there isn't really too much else in the background. I was gonna comment how useless the mud is, but then I realized it was the Nintendo logo. I don't know why it's there, but it is. And the bridges are somewhat memorable, but Moo Moo Farm has a trick up its sleeve, and that was enough to put it here. If you want to take the inner path, there are moles. That's it. I guess it's decently bumpy. It's the first 3D game, so they tried to make most of the maps at least somewhat 3D. Wish they still had that philosophy. It's still the most basic track in this game. Even with the moles and nice aesthetic elements, what are you gonna do with a circle? How are you gonna make a circle interesting? Sorry for not having a lot to say. It is just a circle, but it's a circle with a decent theme. It doesn't really look like chocolate, it's just brown. There's a tunnel that has eyes, which is memorable. Same with the boulders, even if they aren't dangerous. And some of the walls are made of stone for some reason. Now we like eating rocks as much as the next guy. But rocks with chocolate cake? I don't know. My favorite pizza is Hawaiian, so what do I know? Still a pretty bland track visually. It's sad that the fog doesn't work on the Switch Online version. That would have made it slightly better. but wouldn't have affected my placement. Another issue is the part where if you mess up, you need to redo the whole stage. I mean, it's not an issue basically at all once you know how to play the track, but I'm against this on a principle level. Just don't drift on the track and you'll be fine. And effectively, it's the same as respawning. Both are an auto loss since the CPUs cheat. The ledge is walled off on 50cc, but you have to have a serious micro penis to play this game, or any Mario Kart game on 50cc. Unless it's your first time playing any Mario Kart game, which most likely doesn't apply here. The stage functions for the most part, and isn't extremely boring or extremely painful, but I still don't like it that much. This used to be bottom 3. I think that was a skill issue though. Spoilers for the remake of the Super Mario Kart video, but I don't say skill issue when it comes to that game because not practicing Super Mario Kart means you have good time management skills. But I don't think that applies to 64. It has tracks that go above D tier in the whole franchise. I couldn't pin down what I disliked about it, which makes sense since there wasn't a big reason. I've always admired that the penguins make for great hazards. At the start, they're pretty standard dynamic hazards, but a standard dynamic hazard is still phenomenal. Once you're in the cave, you can take a slow path or a riskier fast path. The main issue is how boring it is visually. Like I said, blue ice can be somewhat pretty, but white ice is just boring. You can see your reflection in the ice though, which doesn't seem like the most impressive thing, since reflecting sprites probably isn't too hard. But it reflects the penguins too, that's cool. Your opacity lowers when you're in a boo as well. The cracks are fun to jump, but they're pretty jank assuming you want to cut a useful amount of off-road. And the respawn times are ridiculous in this game, so that doesn't help. They got that right in the previous game, so why can't it work that well here? Yes, it's in 3D, but still. You just get fucked if you try it, which is kinda sad if I'm being honest. Like I said, the main thing is how bland it is. The music is very pleasant though. Before this properly starts, I like how dog shit these trees look. They had a good looking tree texture, so I don't know why they chose these. Moving on. Wow, Luigi Circuit on the GameCube also got 8th place. We're in different tiers, but it's neat anyway. It's a basic beginner track. Most of it is just a big turn. You can cut a good amount of the stage, but it's a little weird that you cut in, continue inwards, then use a mushroom to return to the normal path. Kinda awkward. Guess it shows off the golden mushroom. I still don't like it. I mean, you could get the golden mushroom in like second in this game. The track is also slightly tilted, which is interesting. Neither of those affect the track basically at all though. The theme is okay, and the tunnel is a memorable set piece. I never noticed there was a Jumbotron before the tunnel, but it's cool. You can grab a blue shell from the Luigi balloon. It's useless at first, but it's kind of funny. It actually makes sense to advertise on a racetrack instead of an empty desert. I don't know who they're advertising to there. The Luigi cap is neat as well. It's only half the cap, which actually makes it a bit more memorable. This track doesn't do too much wrong, it's just very basic. It's more complex, but a circuit is a circuit. There is one thing that makes this stand out. You can take some big shortcuts. You can take a tunnel shortcut. It can be a little weird though. Like sometimes there's an invisible wall, sometimes there isn't. Still fun though. There's a starting shortcut that's pretty tight. Normally the stationary piranha plants are pretty useless, but here they add to the challenge. And there's a giant shortcut before the tunnel. However, with that shortcut you skip an item. I love those kind of choices. Unlike the Wii version, you can't go up this hill. And to top it all off, there's a shortcut at the end, which can make for a climactic finish. Speaking aesthetically, it's similar to Luigi Raceway. There's a sign and a Mario hat. The shot sign makes its return. Oh, that guy's okay. There are 2 Yoshi signs right next to each other. You can't even make the argument that it's there in case you missed the first one. Anyway, for some reason when I first played this track, the CPUs were insane. If I made a single mistake, the CPU would be a lap ahead. But replaying it, they're just normal. This track is pretty okay, but still not too interesting besides the shortcuts. And the theme is still kind of bland. This track is weird because on paper it should be pretty good, but playing it, it's just mid. I admire the multiple paths. The fastest one can be pretty tricky to take, and the second fastest has these porcupines which can be pretty difficult to avoid. The other paths are safer though. It's actually better than the 8 version in that aspect. And the giant egg needs no introduction. It's a great dynamic hazard. If you have a golden at the end, you can cut a big part of the track. I always underestimate how many boosts you need. It sounds great. Why is it only in C+? Two main reasons. One, I don't like how long it takes to get picked up once you fall off. It's just unnecessary. And the fast path would already be hard even without that. I get that it could be funny in multiplayer, but I'm playing these in single player, so... And respawning is already long enough in this game. Second thing is that you don't know your placement until the end. I understand it's because of technical limitations, but couldn't have at least told you your position on the grass part. There aren't any alternate paths, so it seems like it'd be pretty easy. I know you can check the minimap, but it's still kind of annoying. Some say it adds to the maze-like structure. I just think it's annoying, especially when you're trying to get gold on all the Grand Prix. But this track is still super unique and has a gigantic amount of alternate paths. I wouldn't blame you if you put this in B, but I just don't like those two problems. This used to be in C, and I still don't understand a lot of the praise, but I like this track now. The cannon is pretty fun. As a build-up, unlike the other cannon, I think the main reason people treat this track so well is because of the Peach's Castle Easter egg, which is really cool, but it has no effect on the race, so I don't really get that. People usually praise the difficulty as well. I mean, I could somewhat get that. It has a couple of nice turns. One thing I used to not like is how hard you'd get punished here, but in context of 64, I'd say it's fine. I can even admire it a little bit. It's so over-the-toply dangerous that it kind of makes you scared. Onto the theming. Mario and Luigi Raceway had hats of their respective characters. This one has Peach's crown. Fun fact, the original name of this track was Peach Circuit, meaning technically there have been 2 Peach circuits in the Mario series. And in Super Circuit, the difficulty of each character's circuit was reversed. It's also neat that each raceway has its own tree. They got more pointy as they progress in difficulty, and harder tracks usually have sharper turns so it fits. This one looks like a chocolate chip type thing. I don't know, it could look like a lot of things. And the big skybox is a nice touch. I didn't really notice it, but it's nice. But the flow of the theme is that overwhelmingly green. I like green, but this is too much. By the way, if you miss the ramp here, you're stuck and you need to reverse. It's very avoidable, but I was pissed when it happened to me. Not actual criticism though. It's far more complex than the other raceways, and it's pretty fun. I like the jungle theme. The restless natives hitting you out of the off-road is funny. The main set piece is the boat. Does Mario for some reason? Why is Mario on so many DK tracks? What's the deal with that? You can clip through the boat too. This is the first jungle track, so it is a unique theme. Spirals in this game can be a little jank, and this one isn't an exception to that. Doesn't really matter at all, but I thought I'd point it out. I like how you can position your landing after the cannon. You can do that in the other cannon section, but it's better here. It's weird that you just stop after taking this cannon, when in Royal Raceway's cannon you fly forward. It's necessary because of the next turn. Because if you rammed into the wall after a cannon, that'd be fucking bullshit. I don't find stopping and needing to turn around a problem either. I just think it's kind of interesting that both cannons in this game have something unique about them. The Krent Bridge can probably make for some fun interactions. Then there's this giant shortcut at the end, which makes this track more thrilling. Also, someone said this looks like a certain substance from another N64 game, and now I can't unsee that. You guys are lucky I'm not cursing you with that knowledge. It's fun and doesn't do anything wrong, and it has some pretty unique elements. The 7 version of this track has an extremely devoted fan base, and I'm not sure if the original version is worshipped the same way. You might think this is just a basic beach and doesn't deserve to be this high, but you'd be wrong. It has one excellent shortcut. It is brutal. If you miss it, you lose like 5 placements. But when you take it, you save minutes. It's the best feeling in this game. I really miss having giant, super hard shortcuts like these. So in my eyes, this had to be B tier minimum. When I first played this, I thought the ramps were dash panels, but I don't think they give you any speed, so it's just a texture. This used to be number 1, but I think other tracks are better. The trees actually spin you out, which is kind of unique. They're okay hazards, but I wish that was telegraphed better. You could take a ramp for an item, but it kills your speed, so it's not worth it. Not to mention it's extremely hard to even get there in the first place. Again, theme-wise it isn't anything special, but god, that shortcut is amazing. The Koopa Rock is also cool. I hate the name though. There's a Koopa Beach and a Koopa Troopa Beach. And then 7 renamed this one to just Koopa Beach. So now we have Koopa Beach 1, Koopa Beach 2, and just Koopa Beach. That's dumb. I'm probably gonna start saying KTB from now on. It has good gameplay and excellent shortcuts. The only thing keeping it higher is the theme. The atmosphere is great here, and the music fits so well, and the Bowser statue breathing fire is very ominous. Once you're inside, you're introduced to the main hazard, the Thwomps. This room introduces them pretty well. It's not hard, but it tells you what to expect. Before we continue, we need to free Marty. What did he do wrong? He's just green. Can't believe Thwomps are racist, SMH my head. I should shut my mouth. Yeah, the use of Thwomps here is really creative. They make for excellent dynamic hazards. The first Thwomps will move and try to pin you down. And there's a row of Thwomps after the homing Thwomps. If you get hit by the homing Thwomps, you usually need to wait since the other Thwomps are probably blocking you, which can be annoying. The second pair of Thwomps are simple but very effective dynamic hazards. Then you're in the garden, go up a spiral. The spiral is pretty jank, but it doesn't really affect anything. Here on the roof, you can take a safer outer path or a riskier inner path. The only minor nitpick I have is that it can be a little too jank sometimes. Also, I have a Fire Badoom Tish idea for a remake. The first lap is normal, but on the second lap, security is called and you need to dodge them. Final lap, the Bowser statue lights everything on fire, meaning you get hurt if you go into the off-road. And maybe the guards become skeletal and can't be killed by items anymore. Maybe they aren't as aggressive when this happens. Anyway, I'll stop yapping now. I said the word Thwomps 9 times in this section. Well, 10 now. People generally seem to dislike this, and those who do like it want the 8 version to be similar to this. I disagree with both. If this was directly ported to 8, I'd say it's bullshit. But in the context of 64, which is so wacky and chaotic, it's great. I think I have car autism. I just love car tracks. I don't like cars in real life, I just love them in Mario Kart. I just think they're an amazing gimmick, and they're so fun to dodge. And needing to weave through the cars isn't impossible. It's very hard, but I've done it on multiple occasions. And if you get hit by the cars, they'll separate by the time you're up. So you might as well try. And the CPUs will probably get hit by them too. You start on this empty segment, then you take a different path when lap 2 and 3 start, and when the race ends. I know they didn't want to start on a curve, and that makes sense. Again, not an actual point, just a little fun fact. And the items are on pit stops. Nice touch. The sky is pretty. Yeah, it's a figure 8, but it's packed and has some stuff going on. RG can play a bit of a factor. Sometimes there aren't too many cars, but most of the time you have a lot. The cars going towards you on mirror mode is also really cool. Nintendo doesn't do stuff like that anymore, which is sad. Very fun, very hard, very good. That was my list. Mario Kart 64 is decently fun. Probably the second worst Mario Kart game, but it's way above Super. It's C in the whole series. Leave a comment if you disagree, just don't be an ass. I want to say thank you for the huge amount of support on the Double Dash video. That was really cool. I also have a main channel which is pretty unhinged and kind of has an extreme sort of edgy sense of humor, so if you're into that, there'll be a link in the description. I even have a Mario Kart 8 video on that channel, which is my best work so far. However, after doing 4 Mario Kart videos in a row, I am very burnt out, so I'm just gonna do something else for a while. I still plan to finish the series, but Jesus, I need a break. Bye!